The 4.4 banners have been revealed, and we're going to talk about the 5 stars, the 4 stars, and the weapon banner, and talk about if any of these are worth it for your account, or if you should be saving. I think the answer is going to greatly depend on the kind of account you have, so I'm going to give you as much information as possible so that you can make your own decision. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. I am so excited for these banners, although I am a little bit shocked and awed and a little bit surprised and a little bit sad. This is the first time we've ever had an exclusive 4-star banner, or sorry, an exclusive support appear on their non-native banner. So Faruzan is traditionally thought of as a Wanderer support or a Xiao support, and surprisingly we've never had her on a Xiao banner, or maybe not surprisingly, at least to me. These exclusive 4 stars like Goro has only run on Ito's banners, Kujo Sara's only run on Raiden's banners, and so it was expected that Faruzan would never leave the Wanderer banner. But this is actually really good for Xiao players, because if you are a Xiao player, you're most likely going to be wishing for Xianyun, and in which case it's a great banner for you to get more Faruzan copies. If you've been a Xiao player and been sniping Faruzan on Wanderer banners, I'm very sorry for you, because this banner is just so much better for a Xiao main than any other banner has ever been to get Faruzan. So I guess they feel now that they've milked Xiao mains dry for all they're worth, now that they can put her on this banner. I'm actually not. I know I said I was sad a minute ago. I already have C6, and I have like 70 pity before going into this banner, so I'm actually not sad. I'm actually fine. This is perfect for me. I would like to get copies of our new boy, but it's okay. Anyways, let's talk about the 5 stars first, then we'll go over the 4 stars, then we'll go over the weapon. Starting with Xianyun. Obviously, we have to wait to know for sure how good she's going to be until we can actually build and test her, because so many characters, they sheet one thing and then you try them and they just blow you out of the water. Like Navia, for example. I just expected her to be a fine, good DPS, but once I tried her, she was so much fun and so good that I like changed my tune from being like she's a decent pick to like one of the best DPS picks. So Xianyun, I know she's cheating a certain way with people that have the knowledge about how good she's going to be from pre-release stuff, but she could be a really big upgrade for so many people's account. Whether you're like a Chongyun main, obviously for Xiao, she's going to be best in slot. Diluc, she's most likely going to be best in slot for Raiden, double Hydra with Farina. There's so many Farina teams that Xianyun will now be best in slot for. Who knows? It's obviously, if you don't have Jean, she's almost a must summon if you don't have Jean and you do have Farina, but there's just so many characters that I think will work really well for her, but I don't know, like I honestly can't tell you if you should get her or not right now. And I know this is a plug, but I will be testing her with every single character that I have built in my account, and I have so many. I'm only missing just a few characters. So if you want to know if your character will be good with Xianyun, make sure to subscribe and look out for my Xianyun guide. It's going to be day 1. I'm going to be spending the next 2 days, when I have early access to the character, to be just going crazy testing this character. And I gotta say, her design, the more I look at her, the more excited I get. She's got such a beautiful, gorgeous design. So I'm just hyped on all cylinders for this character. I think she looks amazing. I think she introduces a whole new play style. There's going to be so many, she's going to be part of so many characters best in slot teams. I think she's going to be a really worth it pickup. We just have to wait until she actually comes out, obviously, to know for sure. Now Nahida, this is a tried and true. If you don't have Nahida and you have any interest in Hyper Bloom, Nilou Bloom, just Dendro teams in general, except for maybe if you're only interested in Aggravate specifically, Nahida is an amazing choice for your account. For spread teams, for Bloom, for Hyper Bloom, Nilou Bloom, etc. Nahida is just incredible. I made an entire video on why she's so incredible, but the too long didn't read is tons of Dendro application, 1.5 units if I'm not much mistaken, which means that the Dendro just lasts so long on the enemy, so you can create so many more blooms. She also generates a ton of energy for your Dendro teammates. She buffs your teammates. Her skill lasts frickin' forever. She's really almost all pros and no cons. If you're using her as a driver in Hyper Bloom, she can be a little bit clunky as she is a child model, so running around with her isn't the most fun for some people. If you want to make Dendro teams, she is as close to a must pull as it gets. If you don't don't care for Dendro teams, or if you just don't like the character, she's not a muscle, but she makes up the backbone of so many teams' strongest variants. So if you love Dendro, if you want to strengthen your account, if you want more options, if you want more flexibility, like you can do Burgeon, you can do Burning, you can do Aggravate with on-field Kazuha and Kuki as her healer. Like you can do so many different things. Again, check out my Nahida video, but she's incredible. Now, there are so many more cores in Genshin than there used to be. Like there used to be like the National Core and the Bennett Kazuha Core and maybe Electrocharge as a core. But nowadays, there's so many more. Since Dendro, we've had all the different Dendro cores between Hyper Bloom. And since Fontaine, we've gotten Farina and Farina Jean. And now Farina Xianyun, I believe, is going to become one of the strongest cores in Genshin Impact. Farina Xianyun Double Hydro, Farina Xianyun is just going to be so good. So I don't think that like if you want to be, if you like, say you want to make your account stronger, but you don't really want Nahida, you can get Xianyun and she's going to enable so many extremely strong teams for you that you don't have to feel bad about it. You don't have to build Dendro teams to have a strong account. Although I will say for a lot of Abysses, especially with those like Hydro shields and stuff, having Dendro and specifically Nahida is just an absolute godsend. So she is really good. Definitely, if you kind of want her, you should get her. And Xianyun, just wait until that day one guide. So looking at the 4 stars. 4 stars are interesting. Noelle, Faruzan, and Gaming. So individually, Noelle has gotten a really big buff since Farina came out. So if you've been interested in Noelle, you kind of really want her C6 to really have her pop off. And this is a great, obviously if you're interested in Noelle, you're going to have Farina. In which case getting Xianyun as like, you could use her in addition to Noelle, but using her as an alternate core, like there's some decent synergy there. Like that's kind of good. She's not like a generalist unit. So Noelle isn't a character that you build to make your account necessarily stronger, but she is a pretty solid unit these days with the advent of Farina teams. So if you've been having your eye on Noelle, but you haven't got your Constellation 6 yet, this is a great time to pick her up. And you can also pick her up on the Nahida banner, of course. And if you then maybe you don't, if you already have Jean, you don't really need Xianyun, but you want to make some Noelle happen. Yeah, I think that's cool. For people who aren't specifically interested in Noelle, I don't recommend building her just to have a healer on your account, for example. Like in the early game, of course, right? In the early game, she's a tank. She's a healer, she's a DPS. She's so good in the early game. And build her up to level 40, level 50, even level 60, level 70. But to make work at the highest level to 36 star, I don't recommend Noelle, but for the early game, she's great. And the more Constellations is great. I don't really recommend wishing for Constellations for early game. Constellations for 4 stars in general are very ill-advised. It took me C4 Raiden and $700 to get C6 Chevrolet before, and I got C4 Raiden, so I don't really recommend wishing for 4 stars. But Noelle is a great character for the early game. If you happen to pick her up, great for you, but generally you don't wish for her and build her properly unless you really like her, because she does take a lot of resources to truly max out. Also did want to quickly shout out Overworld and early game for these 2 characters, for Xianyun and for Nahida. I do think Nahida is a decent character for early game because she helps you harvest materials. She does make strong teams. Dendro teams very strong in the early game with transformative reactions like Hyper Bloom and Burgeon and Burning being strong in the early game. But I also think Xianyun is a very, very strong early game character, having access to Viridescent Venerer, having access to a very strong healer. Plunge has very, very strong multipliers, so using Xianyun Plunge in the early game is a really, really good idea. Yeah, I actually think that's not bad. I think I might be starting my Genshin Impact Nuzlocke and seriously doing it very soon, and I think Xianyun is going to be a character I really, really go for. So next for Faruzan. Faruzan's a very niche character, but a very, very strong character when you get C6. So the fact that she's on this banner means that Hoyoverse is willing to put her on banners that aren't just the Wanderer banner, meaning you have much more chances to get C6 Faruzan. You may already have C2 or C3. Maybe you get C6 here. If you get her to C6 and you have an interest in another Animo DPS, whether that be Zhao, whether that be, I don't know, Xianyun, maybe you want to build Xianyun as a DPS. How does that work? I'm going to test it out in my video, so make sure to subscribe to see that. But if you have an interest in Hazo, in Wanderer, Faruzan is, yes, she's niche in the fact that she only works for Animo damage dealers, but she is always the best character for Animo damage dealers. She's insane. Her C6 gives crit damage, gives energy, gives crowd control a little bit. Just stupid character, and has Animo defense down, resistance shred, sorry. Obviously she can use VV, so she can be the VV holder builder on that team. Just keep in mind that if you do want to use her, you need lots of energy, especially if you're pre-C6, you need like 350 energy until you get high constellations. So keep that in mind for Faruzan. But she has an absolutely crazy kit when she's at C6. So getting copies of her, I think, is Pog. Obviously, if you're not planning on running an Animo damage dealer, then it's less Pog. Like, you can do some meme stuff with like Thundering Fury, Faruzan, and Electrocharge and something like that, but she's the support for Animo damage dealers. So if you want those, great. If not, not so great. And Gaming, I already made a Gaming pre-release video. We don't have any more information yet. Again, I'm going to be releasing a guide, probably not the minute the banner releases, but a little bit later. I don't recommend you wish for 4 stars anyways, so the guide shouldn't impact your pulling decisions, but just maybe hold off on building him until maybe like 12 hours after the update comes out, and then I'll release my Gaming guide, or maybe I might get it out sooner. We'll see how it goes. But he's looking like a really fun character. When you get him to high constellation, he sheets and at crazy levels, like 5-star DPS levels, like high tier, top tier 5-star DPS levels. He could be better than Hu Tao. He could be. We'll just have to wait and see. I'll be testing him at C0 and at C6. We'll be comparing them. He's a character that really benefits from C6 Bennett, which is pretty cool. His animations, they just dropped his trailer. His trailer looks incredible. He's got incredible animations. I think he's not a character, I mean, he could be, if you happen to get C6, you could consider building him for power. Obviously, wait until you see mine and others' guides. Generally, you won't be building him for power. It's mostly because you like him and you want to build him and you like his silly lion and you think it looks awesome and he's going to be great. I don't think you regret building and investing into your Gaming. Of course, if you only get C0 and you don't have C6 Bennett, you might feel a little bit underwhelming, but as soon as you start getting C4 of him, C6 Bennett, if you get Xianyun, if you use him with Farina, then it all adds up to make him be really strong. So on the whole, this banner is a hodgepodge. It's like, if you're interested in this, it's good for this 4-star is good. If you're interested in this 4-star is good. If you're interested in this 4-star is good. These 4 stars are really sus for Nahida. Like, pretty much none of these have any synergy with Nahida at all. So if you are not interested in Xianyun at all and you're just going for Nahida, it's like, it's kind of too bad. It's like, I don't recommend building Pity on the current banner, but like, if you're feeling lucky, I really don't recommend building Pity. But like, these are tough characters to synergize with Nahida. They don't go particularly well with Nahida. So yeah, sorry to Nahida lovers. Xianyun lovers, I think it's pretty likely that some of these are useful to most people. None of them are useful to me because I'll be building Gaming, but I'm not like trying specifically to get a bunch of constellations. I'll be testing them on the media server, and the other 2 I already have C6. So I think for most people, at least one of these 3 are going to be good. Genshin's getting to the point where there's so many different ways that you can go with your account and so many different supports and characters that you can build or not. There are very few like super universal 4-stars anymore. It's basically like just Bennett. Even Xingqiu you can get away without building these days. Most people will still build them and he's still pretty much universal. So it's like Bennett, Shangling, Xingqiu, and that's pretty much it. If it's not one of those 3, then they're not universal. And so, but I think that Faruzan overall is a really big W for this banner. No matter who you are, you can do for Faruzan. And also, I wanted to talk about 5-star Constellation. For Xianyun, we don't really know yet. Let's wait a little bit longer. For Nahida, her C2 is one of the best in the game. It is one that if you want to go vertical investment in power, like if you're done making more and more teams and you don't need to build more teams and more fun and stuff like that, and you want to zero in on power, Nahida is a great one to go for. If you use Nahida in your teams a lot, she's Alhaitham's best constellation, she's Nilu's best constellation, Hyperbloom's best constellation. It's very powerful. So it's definitely something you can consider working towards for the future. But the game is still currently at a point where as long as you invest smartly, C0 5-stars is more than good enough to clear the game. But I will say, unless you invest really well, it can be more challenging than some people would enjoy. So I do recommend that if you're the type of person that wants to get to a point where you feel like you're just slashing the abyss and destroying everything, I would look to zero in on a few choice constellations or 5-star weapons, and Nahida is definitely one of those choices. If you want to see me do a video on best ways to vertically invest in your account, leave a comment below and I'll consider making that video sooner than later. I have a video like that, but we've gotten a lot of new really good constellations, so maybe worth considering upgrading. It was before Fontaine, so we've had a lot of new really good early constellations and weapons, so let me know if you want to see that video. And finally, let's talk about the weapon. Now let's talk about the 5-stars, each of them, then the 4-stars, and then as a banner all together. So the Crane's Echo Echoing Call. First of all, one of the most beautiful weapons in the game. Gorgeous fan. I think this is gonna, it looks so beautiful that I kind of just want to get it just because it looks so beautiful. And it's really interesting. Support weapons have always been interesting to me. There aren't that many good support weapons in Genshin. Nilu's comes to mind, but even then it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a support weapon. Like Kazuo's Freedom Sworn, but it's like not that good. Like a lot of our best support weapons are 4 stars or even 3 stars. Like Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayer and Favonius weapons are like some of the best support weapons we have, and they're 3 and 4 stars. So 5 stars for support weapons have so far always been a kind of a weird place. So let's see if this changes it. After the equipping character hits an opponent with a plunging attack, which if you remember, Xianyun does that with her skill. She will always use her skill and plunge. So this will always activate, obviously. All party members' plunging attacks will deal 28% increased damage for 20 seconds. 28% increased damage is a lot. This is actually a very, very sizable amount of damage increase. Very, very impressive actually for a support weapon. And 20 seconds is a long time. That's the whole rotation, so you don't have to worry about refreshing this. When nearby party members hit opponents with plunging attacks, they will restore 2.5 energy to the equipping character. So that's this character, the character that has the Crane's Echoing Call. That'll be Xianyun. Energy can be restored this way every 0.7 seconds. This energy regen effect can be triggered even if the equipping character is on the field. So this gives damage for the on-field character and energy to Xianyun, which is exactly what she wants, to help the on-field character do damage, obviously, and for her to get energy. So she is looking to have a pretty high energy cost. We'll have to wait and see for sure. This is a good weapon. If you want to get this weapon, it's a good weapon. I don't think that something like this is going to be worth, it's not worth your Jade, or it's not worth your Primo Gems. I'm not even playing Star Rail anymore. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not worth your Primo Gems if you just want power, like for your overall account, and you don't have lots of other 5-star weapons and constellations yet. Like C2 Nahida is overall going to be way bigger. C1 Farina, because you'll usually be running with Xianyun with Farina. C1 Farina, C2 Farina. Either of those is way better for your Xianyun teams than the Crane's Echoing Call, or maybe not way better, but definitely better. But it is so beautiful. So if you love the beauty of this weapon, or if you want to like max out your Zhao team, or I don't know what else. The other thing to consider is it is 20% increase, 28% increased damage. This is a lot. This is very sizable. This is similar to a Kazuo buff, which is kind of crazy, right? Yeah, this is like an average Favonius sword holding Kazuo buff. Kind of rack, actually, for a weapon. Wow. I don't know. I'll test it out for you guys. I have access to this weapon. I'll test it out. We'll see how much of a difference it actually makes. I'll do like a practicality test for like how does it feel. We'll obviously have sheets. I recommend Genshin Scientist. I recommend Zajef for the sheets on exactly how much, but it's hard to really calculate a damage bonus like this across all teams in general, especially considering that sometimes, like for example, on Xiao teams where you will have lots of animal particles, you will have access to the Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayer, or on Raiden teams, you will have access to the Thrilling Tales and you may not even get, well, you may get this actually, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'll test that out too. You also have a really high base attack is the other thing to consider, which will increase her buff overall because her buff is based on attack. I will say this, if you have the Primo Gems available, this is probably actually a good weapon to get, especially compared to a lot of 5-star weapons that you can go for, because she's going to be a pretty universal support, and so this will generally buff a lot of your teams, but she's going to have really good options that are free to play with Oathsworn Eye, Favonius Codex, Thrilling Tales, depending. So let's wait and see, but it's definitely not a necessary thing. Her kit is looking plenty strong enough without this weapon, but I am happy that the weapon is actually good as opposed to something like Baiju's weapon or Kokomi's weapon, which they're supportive characters, but their weapons don't really do much. This is at least something good, and it's not something that's necessary, so let's wait and see. 1,000 Floating Dreams is Nahida's weapon. Party members other than the equipping character will provide the equipping character with buffs based on whether their elemental type is the same as the latter or not. If their elemental types are the same, increasing elemental master by 32, so if they're a Dendro character. If not, increase the equipping character's damage bonus from their elemental type by 10%. Oh, this is providing Nahida, sorry. She's not buffing the other characters, they're buffing her. If not, increase the equipping character's damage bonus from their elemental type by 10%. 10%. So if you have Dendro characters on your team, they'll increase her damage bonus by 10% per Dendro character, and if they're non-Dendro, they'll increase their elemental mastery by 32%. This is nice because no matter what, you're getting a buff that she can use, and she can use well. Each of the aforementioned effects can have up to 3 stack. Additionally, all nearby party members other than the equipping character, which is all your party members on your team, will have their elemental mastery increased by 40. Multiple such effects from multiple such weapons can stack. So if you have multiple floating dreams, you can get multiple boosts of elemental mastery. So 40 elemental mastery, not a crazy amount. It's definitely not as big as something like a 28% damage bonus, but it does give yourself like up to 30% damage bonus, plus buffing everyone else's elemental mastery by 40. This is a good weapon, right? It's definitely not. Nahida has so many good weapons. You can check out my Nahida guide for all of them, but this is a good weapon. So going into the 5-star banner, it's one of the better weapon banners to support Catalyst. Crane's Echoing Call is definitely locked to Xianyun, but I don't think that's the worst thing in the world because she's a very, very flexible character that you'll be using pretty much glued to your Farina most of the time. Who cannot use Xianyun? I think like if your Farina is glued to your Novelette, for example, then maybe you're really not getting Xianyun, but even then the healing and VV could be nice. But yeah, and then if you have Nahida, I would say if you have both Nahida and Xianyun, then this is actually a pretty great weapon banner, honestly. Because if we move over here to the 4 stars, we've got Sacrificial Claymore, one of the better claymores, but there really aren't any good ones, so what it is. Sacrificial Fragments, good weapon, not insane. Sacrificial Sword, good weapon, not insane. Sacrificial Bow, decent weapon, not good, decent. And Lithic Spear, good weapon sometime. Like I could see this on Zhao with Zhao, Xianyun, Farina. Even then that's only 2 leeway. I think Lithic Spear is kind of a miss. So it's like these 4 stars are like good but not great. Sacrificial Sword, good on Xingqiu, good on Kazuha sometimes. That's pretty much it, but not really best on Slough either. Favonius kind of clears. Sacrificial Fragments, good on Nahida. Claymore is okay on Navia. Sacrificial Bow is like good on Kujasara, kind of okay on Diona. I'm not exactly sure who else. Overall, it's like I'm not in love with the 4 stars. I don't absolutely despise them. If only we had a Sacrificial Polearm, this would actually be cracked. This would be so sick. As is, I like it. I don't love it. But for the 5, I wish there was some Favonius. Like I wish Favonius Lance was here. But as is, if you want to go for this weapon banner because you have both of these characters, you can go for it. Again, I highly recommend C2 Nahida before you consider this weapon. And if you're a Zhao main, I highly recommend to go for C6 Faruzan. And if you get Xianyun Constellations, I'm sure they will help before you go for this weapon. So that's my verdict. Good weapon banner, but probably not as good as Constellations on the character banners, unless you're already kind of decked out for this stuff. My plan for my account, of course, we build and test every single character. We'll be getting Xianyun. We will not be going hard for gumming Constellations because I will be testing him on the media server. I already have Nahida. I doubt I will wish on this weapon banner. The only way I could see it, here's the way I could see it. I will wish on this weapon banner for Crane's Echoing Call if it buffs Raiden's team with Xianyun and it's best in slot, if it's better than Thrilling Tales by a noticeable amount. I doubt that'll happen, but it's possible. So that's kind of my litmus test as to whether I'll be wishing on this. I don't go for Constellations on 5 stars though, so that's not an option for me. Let me know what your pulling plans are. And again, once again, I know I've asked this so many times, but make sure you subscribe so you can get and turn on notifications for my minute 1 Xianyun guide. It goes live the minute the banner goes live, so get ready for that. Take care. Bye for now.